The self-editing tips I'm about to share with you in the second of my self-editing videos will save you a lot of time and mistakes. Whether you are self-editing as you write or are going through your manuscript one last time before sending it to a professional editor, you'll find this video to be super helpful for better self-editing. Before I get to my tips, let me welcome you to the Better Memoir Writing Masterclass channel. I am Denis Ledoux. I am the author of the classic granddaddy of memoir writing books, Turning Memories into Memoirs, and I am the founder of the Memoir Network. While I am offering you the steps in a linear way, mentioning one thing and then another in practice as you go through your manuscript, you will do well to be aware of all of these elements at one time. That is, you are looking to edit everything. Of course, you will, on various occasions perhaps, slight one element of self-editing or another. But when you realize this, you can go back and you can re-edit your text. Self-editing your manuscript will take a while. I even recommend that you do it several times, and even perhaps a month or two in between these times. What this does is distance you emotionally from your manuscript. When you return to it, you can return to it in some way as a reader rather than as the writer. Here's my tip number 1 for self-editing. Before you do a memoir edit, spend a moment to ask yourself, what is the theme of your book? What are you actually trying to say? Your life has been full and complicated. There are many, many things that you can write about. But when you write a memoir, generally, you are aiming to make a specific point. This point is your theme. As you reread your memoir, ask if you have really chosen the right theme. Perhaps you have chosen a theme which you feel is acceptable to the public. Yes, my clients do this very thing frequently. They want to make nice. What often happens when this is the case is the writer will unconsciously insert many passages, vignettes, and stories that are in support of what they really want to write about, as opposed to what they believe the audience wanted. These two strains, the conflict between what they really want to write about and what they permit themselves to write about, are confusing to the reader. When you realize you're developing the wrong theme, it is time to rework your story. Ouch! I know this is perhaps not what you want to do after already having spent a long time writing, but it is what you must do. Often it is a professional editor who spots the discrepancy and helps you to arrive at this insight of the very discrepancy. As you review your book for theme, question every element in your manuscript. Does each element support your theme? Keep asking yourself, what is essential to leave in to support my theme, and what can I leave out as it is tangential? What is tangential is often called fluff. Fluff is perhaps even very interesting, but in the end, it doesn't really add impact to your story. You can make your point without these fluff vignettes. Tip number 2. Here I am going to call upon Robert Louis Stevenson, the Scottish writer. He said that all stories must have character, action, and setting. In the second part of the video, I will have you look at all three of these elements. First, let's start with character. Have you described your character in sufficient detail to make that character vivid to the reader? Do you include dialogue so that we can hear the characters speaking? Have you described the character in sense detail? The sense details are the sight, the smell, the taste, the sound, and the touch. If you have not, go back and develop these details. Then ask yourself if you have described your character with consistency. It happens that a writer will speak about a character in the way that he or she thinks is the polite way or an acceptable way to speak about that character. But subsequently, he or she will write about the character in a different way. I have often heard or read clients describe their mother, let's say, as a kind and generous person, and then later they will write about her how she was stinting either in her praise or in her cooperation, and I will ask, how can this person you have just described be described as kind and generous? Obviously, the writer is conflicted about how to portray their mother. As you do your self-editing, look for consistency in the portrayal. If there is no consistency, which element of the portrayal do you want and need to keep, and which must be changed, must be thrown out of your story? Second, let's move to action in your story. Have you selected enough elements of your plot, of your action, to support your theme generally? Stating something once is usually not sufficient to make a point. If you want to show that somebody was belligerent, let's say, stating so once will likely not suffice. You must show this belligerence over several occasions for the reader to get it. How you used foreshadowing and suspense in the creation of your plot is important. Both of these elements are drawn from fiction, but they are important in emphasizing and enhancing the interest of your story. I have a video on foreshadowing and suspense that you should watch. Third, let's look at the setting. Setting is where your story takes place. Setting can tell us a lot about a person's social and economic condition, about a person's psychology. In one memoir that I was coaching, the writer wrote about how going from one locale to another made her feel so much better and how much happier she was to be in a different environment. And that was all she wrote. A lot of telling and no showing. I also have a video on telling and showing, which I'd like for you to look at. When I asked her to describe the difference between where she had been and where she had moved to, she was able to add elements such as the climate, the temperature, the flora, the landscape. There were so many elements that created a place that was clearly more pleasant to be in as opposed to the place that was really, well, unpleasant and really had to be endured. Okay, so much for Robert Louis Stevenson's 3 points of every story. As you self-edit, be sure to turn on your spell check and go through your entire manuscript. Remember that spell check does not pick up homonyms that are spelled correctly. Tip number 3 in the self-editing video. I'd like to leave you with the concept of concise and complete. You must say everything you need to say and not say anything more. People will often ask me if they have to write paragraphs and paragraphs to be complete. Well, that certainly would not be concise. What I'm advocating is both to be complete and to be concise, not one or the other. Let me give you an example of complete and concise. When my children were little, I always let them serve themselves. I did not believe in loading their plates and giving them too much food. I certainly didn't want to have chubby kids. I used to say to them, you can take as much food as you want, but no more. If you want more food than you have already eaten from your plate, you're welcome to serve yourself more food. And you must eat all that you put on your plate as a second helping. My kids were really good about this too. This is an example of complete and concise. My kids took as much food as they wanted, that was being complete, and no more, that's being concise. Your story too needs to be complete and concise. If you would like to explore receiving help with your memoir on any aspect of memoir writing or publishing, we offer a 30-minute complimentary get-to-know-you coaching session. The link to a free consultation is in the description below. Before you go, please hit the subscribe button at the bottom left of this video and click on the bell next to it. Subscribing assures this memoir writing content will appear on your YouTube homepage and recommendations bar. Check the description below for a link to this week's free video e-course, which I have prepared just for you. And remember, inch by inch, it's a cinch. Yard by yard, it's hard. Good luck writing your stories.